All right, today we are tackling a big one, a really big one. We're diving into Plato's Timaeus, which is without a doubt one of the most ambitious, most challenging, and let's be honest, one of the weirdest texts in the entire history of philosophy. This is basically Plato's attempt to create a grand theory of everything, and I mean everything, from how the cosmos was born all the way down to why the human liver works the way it does.
But before we get into all that cosmic stuff, let me ask you something. I'm sure you've heard of Atlantis, right? The incredible, advanced island civilization that supposedly vanished into the ocean in a single day? Of course you have. So where do you think that story actually came from? Some ancient sailor's tale? A mysterious carving on a temple wall? Well, the answer might surprise you. It came from right here, in the Timaeus. Yep, the entire legend that has launched 1,000 books and movies is basically just a little side story, a footnote, in this massive philosophical work. And that's actually the perfect way to start, because it shows just how strange and powerful this text is, and how it's influenced the world in ways Plato could never have imagined. Now, to really get why Plato felt he needed to write, like a user's manual for the entire universe, we have to take a step back and look at the world of ideas he was living in. It was an amazing time, full of brilliant thinkers, but intellectually, it was kind of a beautiful mess. Think of it like a philosophical free-for-all. You've got Heraclitus over here saying everything is constantly changing. You can't even step in the same river twice. Then, on the complete opposite side, you have Parmenides, who argues that no, change is just an illusion. Reality is one single, unchanging, eternal thing. And then Pythagoras jumps in, convinced the whole secret to the universe is math. And to top it off, you have Anaxagoras, who suggested that some kind of cosmic mind is what brought order to everything in the first place. All amazing ideas, right? But they were all clashing, totally at odds with one another. And then, into this intellectual whirlwind, steps Plato. He essentially looks at all this chaos and says, okay, hold on. What if all of you are a little bit right? He decides to take these competing ideas and weave them together into one single, absolutely breathtaking story. He's not just trying to describe a piece of reality, he wants to explain the whole shebang, from the very top down. The star of his cosmic story is a figure called the Demiurge. Now, this is a really key point. The Demiurge is not a creator god who makes the universe out of nothing. No, think of him more like a divine artist or a master architect. He finds this pre-existing, messy, chaotic glop of stuff, and because he's good, he wants to make it as beautiful and as orderly as he possibly can. As Plato himself says, he was good, and the good can never have any jealousy of anything. So he just rolls up his sleeves and gets to work. But here's the catch. The Demiurge isn't all-powerful. He has to work with the material he's given, this stubborn, unruly stuff that Plato calls necessity. So the whole story of creation isn't a magical act. It's more like a negotiation. It's the story of mind trying to persuade necessity, to impose as much order and reason as it can onto this inherently messy material. And that, for Plato, is the big answer to the question, why isn't the world perfect? It's not a design flaw, it's a limitation of the raw materials. Okay. So if the Demiurge is a craftsman, every craftsman needs a clan, right? A blueprint, a pattern they're working from. So what blueprint is this divine architect looking at to shape our world? Well, this question brings us right to the absolute heart of Plato's entire philosophy. Here it is, Plato's famous two-world theory. First, there's the world we live in, the one we can see, touch, and hear. He calls this the world of becoming, because everything in it is always becoming something else. It's changing, it's temporary, it's imperfect. But, and this is the whole game, this world we see is just a shadow, an imperfect copy of a higher, true reality, the world of being. This is the realm of the perfect ideas, or forms, the perfect form of a circle, of justice, of beauty. It's eternal, it never changes, and you can only grasp it with your mind. That is the perfect blueprint the Demiurge is using to build our messy, beautiful world. But Plato doesn't stop there. Oh no, the Demiurge doesn't just build a dead machine like a clock. Instead, he creates one single, vast, living creature. He literally puts intelligence in soul and soul in body and makes the whole universe into a living thing with a rational soul. He calls it the world soul, and it's what guides the perfect, orderly motions of the stars and planets. So get your head around this. For Plato, the cosmos is alive and it's intelligent. And Plato's idea about time is a perfect example of this whole blueprint versus copy thing. See, the blueprint, the world of being, is eternal. It exists completely outside of time. But our physical world, the copy,
can't be truly eternal. So what does the Demiurge do? He makes the next best thing, time. Time, measured by the steady, predictable movements of the planets, is the closest a changing thing can get to being changeless. Plato calls it, beautifully, the moving image of eternity.
So, there you have it, Plato's incredible vision of an ordered, rational, and living universe. But the story of the Timaeus doesn't stop when Plato puts his pen down. In fact, what happens to this book throughout history is almost as fascinating as the ideas inside it. I just love this quote from the translator Benjamin Jowett because it hits the nail on the head. He basically asks, how on earth did this book, which, let's be real, can be a really dense and strange read today, end up being one of the most influential texts in Western civilization for over 1,500 years? Its influence was just immense, and sometimes for reasons Plato never would have guessed. You had mystical philosophers called the Neo-Platonists who treated it like a sacred text filled with hidden secrets. Early Christian theologians like St. Augustine read it and saw amazing parallels to their own ideas about God as a divine creator. For centuries in the Middle Ages, this was pretty much the only thing by Plato that most scholars in Europe could get their hands on, so it basically shaped their entire worldview. And then you fast forward to the Renaissance, and you've got astronomers like Johannes Kepler reading it and getting inspired to find the mathematical harmonies that govern the heavens, because just like Plato, they believed God was a geometer. So if you boil it all down, here's the ultimate takeaway. The Timaeus is a huge, bold declaration of faith in reason. It's an argument against a universe run by pure chance or meaningless chaos. For Plato, the universe has a deep, rational structure. It's ordered, it's good, and because our own minds are a little spark of that same cosmic order, we actually have a chance to understand it. That idea, that is the bedrock of so much of Western science and philosophy. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. Plato's tools were geometry, music, and the idea of a divine mind. The blueprint he was looking at was a world of perfect forms. Today, we're still on that same quest, aren't we? Still trying to figure out the ultimate blueprint of reality. It's just that our tools are different now. We have particle physics, genetics, cosmology. So the question for us is, what are the blueprints we're looking at now? And how are they going to shape the way people see the world in the future?
This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.